Okay, so I'm going to be recording now all the lessons that we're doing in class on and uploading them on YouTube because of popular demand. You guys wanted more videos, so you're going to get them now. And then I'm also going to go back and re-record all the other lessons that we didn't do or that we did do but I haven't recorded. It's going to take a while to update it. Hopefully by the end of week 7, I want to say, we'll be up to date and have all the videos of the whole term up. Today we're just going to be doing the solving rational equations day one notes, which again was on Monday the 17th notes. It was a difficult lesson, as you guys saw during the class, but hopefully the video makes it a little bit better. Okay, so let me just share my screen so you guys can see what I'm doing. And then also, I am also gonna, what's it called, have do the worksheets. I don't know if I'm gonna do them immediately or the day after, but we'll just get started for today. So for the solving rational equations day one, we had a couple of definitions. The first definition was rational equation. All a rational equation is, it's just an equation involving rational expressions, or in other words, it's just an equation with fractions. So whenever you have a fraction, and it's most likely going to be a rational equation. Excluded values. Excluded values are just values of x that make the denominator equal to 0. And if you don't know what the denominator is, all the denominator means is that it is the bottom part of the fraction. That's all the denominator means. Okay, so any values of x that makes the bottom part of the fraction equal to 0, that is a no-go. That's an excluded value. Okay, extraneous solutions is a solution that you get when solving, but it's not a valid solution to the problem. So let's say we get a problem, we get the solution that x is equal to 2. If x equals to 2 is also one of our excluded values, then it's going to be not possible. So it's going to be an extraneous solutions. And then the last definition that we did was LCD. LCD just stands for least common denominator. And I would say this is the easy part of the examples that we're doing today. Okay, so I'm gonna get started with some examples. So the easy examples are that you're gonna get questions that ask you to find the LCD. So they'll give you questions like this. Unfortunately, you are gonna have to do some factoring if it's not factored. Um, but this is something we've been doing the whole term, so it's not that bad. So for the first on the left, first denominator on the left, you have x squared plus 7x plus 12, and you have to split it to make it, or you have to do ABC to factor it. So first you find out what your A is. So your A is always going to be next to your X. So what is my A? It's going to be 1. B is always next to your X. So your B is just going to be 7. And then C is your constant. So what is your constant here? It is 12. And then we're just going to do our diamond. So on the top of our diamond, you put A times C, or in this case, 1 times 12, which is just 12. And then on the bottom, you put your B, or in this case, which our B is just 7. So on the bottom, we just put 7. Now, you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 12 that add up to 7. And there's only two numbers that do that, which is 4 and 3. And now what we're going to do is replace that middle term of 7x with our left and right, and just rewrite our equation. So we'll have x squared plus 4x plus 3x plus 12. And now we're just going to do our grouping. So how many x's are in x squared? 2. So you go 1, 2. And then 4x is just 4 and 1x. And 3x is just 3 and 1x. Now for 12, can you rewrite it as 3 times something? The answer to that question is yes, and which is just 3 times 4. So you're just going to rewrite 12 as 3 times 4. And now we're just going to look at what the first two have in common. So here are the first two. What do the first two have in common? They have an x in common. So you circle them and you write x. Now, what did we not use on the top? We didn't use an X. What about the bottom? We didn't use a 4. And then what's your symbol in between? Plus. Now we're going to do the same thing with the last two. What do the last two have in common? They have a 3. What do we not use in the top one? An X. What do we not use in the bottom one? A 4. And then your symbol in between is a plus. Now, what do these two have in common? They both have x plus 4 in common. So we'll put x plus 4. And then remember, when you're grouping, the second one's going to be your leftover. So in this case, the x plus 3. And now we factored it, and we're done with the first denominator. Now we're going to unfortunately have to do that with the second denominator. These questions do end up being some long problems, but they're not too difficult, I would say. So now we're just going to do the same thing. Since we have x squared minus a number, we can just factor it using our ABC method. So your a is going to be whatever's next to x squared. So in this case, our a is 1. Your b is next to your x. Do we have an x? We do not have an x, so our b is just going to be 0. Our c is going to be our constant. So our constant on this denominator is just negative 16. And then you're doing your diamond. On the top, you put your a times c. Our a is 1, our c is negative 16. 1 times negative 16 is just negative 16. On the bottom, you put your b, which is just 0. Now, what are two numbers that multiply to negative 16 but add up to 0? And then, or before that, since you have a 0 on the bottom and you have a number on top, whenever you have a 0 on the bottom, you know that the left and the right is going to be the same number. Just one of them is going to be negative. So what number times itself gives you 16? 4. And now we're just going to replace our middle term, which we don't have here, but we'll replace that with the negative, with the left and the right. And since we have a negative, we must put that one first. So it'll be x squared minus 4x plus 4x minus 16. And now we're just going to be doing our grouping. So how many x's are in x squared? 2. So x squared is just equal to x times x. And then 4x is just 4 times your x. And then again, 4x is just 4 times your x. Now you have a 16. Can you rewrite 16 as 4 times something? Yes, 4 times 4. Now we're going to circle and see what they have in common. So the first two, what do they have in common? They have x's in common. So we're circling those x's. What do we not use on the top? An x. What do we not use on the bottom? A 4. Then with your symbol in between, minus. What do the last two have in common? They got a 4 in common. So we're circling, writing the 4. What do we not use on top? An x. What do we not use on bottom? A 4. And then with your symbol in between, minus. Okay, so what did both of these two have in common? X minus 4. And then on the second one, we put our leftovers, which is just going to be x plus 4. All right. So now, to find the LCD, the way you do it, or the way that I like to do it, is I first find my pairs. And when I say pairs, is see what these bottom two have in common. So put LCD. Now, what do both of these two have in common? They both have an x plus 4 in common. So just write that one first. And what I like to do is, since I use this x plus 4, I'm just going to cancel that. Now, what have I not used on the left? Or first, is there anything else I have in common? They don't have anything else in common. So now we're just going to write our leftover. So what have we not used on the left? We didn't use x plus 3. So we'll write that down, x plus 3. Now, what do we, and then I'll cancel it because we used it. Now, what did I not use on the right? X minus 4. So you'll write that down next. And now, since we used everything, we're done. And that's your, you just box your answer and you're done. And that's how you do the LCD. And that's it. It is a lot of steps when you do your ABCs, but it isn't that bad. Okay. So we'll move on to the second example now. So for the second example, I'm gonna first here put like this blue line so you'll know this right side is gonna be part problem 2. So you're gonna start with the bottom again. We're bottom of the denominator, we're factoring. So you're factoring. So it's gonna be A, B, C. So A is always next to your x squared. So what's gonna be your A? 1. B is next to your x. So what's in front next to your B? Negative 11. And then C is your constant, which is just 24. And then again, on top of the diamond, you put A times C. So what's 1 times 24? 24. And the bottom, you put B, which is just negative 11. Now, since now you just have to look for two numbers that multiply to positive 24, but add up to negative 11. And the only two numbers that are so is negative 8 and 3, and negative 3. Now, we're just going to replace our middle term of negative 11x with our left and the right. So you'll have x squared minus 8x minus 3x plus 24. And now you're just going to do your grouping. But before I want to do my grouping, you see how we have a minus in between the middle two terms? We never want to have a minus there. So what we're going to do is put a plus on top and then turn this into a minus. Okay? Now, we're just going to do our grouping. So x squared, how many x's are in x squared? There's two x's, so x times x. 8x is just 8 times x. 3x is just 3 times x. And then 24. Can you rewrite the 24 as 3 times a number? You can. 3 times 8. So we just rewrite as 3 times 8. Now, we're just going to look at what the first two have in common. So the first two only have an x in common. So you write down x. And now what we didn't use. So we didn't use on top an x. On the bottom, we didn't use an 8. And then what's your symbol in between? Minus. Now, we're going to check what the last two have in common now. The last have a 3 in common. So you put a 3. And now we do what we didn't use. So on top, we didn't use a x, so we put an x. And then on the bottom, we didn't use an 8, so we'll put an 8. Now, look at your symbol on top. It's a minus. So in between, we'll put a minus. And now, this might be a little bit tricky, but you see how earlier we did changes from a minus to a plus? Even though we change it for right here, we're going to take the bottom sign. So since the bottom is a minus, we'll put a minus in front of this 3. So it's a little bit tricky, but we always have to do that. So now, what do both of those have in common? They both have an x minus 8 and then an x minus 3. And now we just have to do the same step, but with the other one. So over here, on the second denominator, just start with your ABC. So your A is whatever is next to your x squared, which is just a 1. Your B is next to your x, which is just a negative 6. And then your C is your constant, which is just 9. And now you're looking for 2. On top of your diamond, you're putting your A times C, which is 1 times 9, which is just 9. On the bottom, you put your B, which is just negative 6. Now you're looking for two numbers that multiply to 9, add up to negative 6. And those two numbers are negative 3 and negative 3. And now we're just going to replace our middle term of negative 6x with the left and the right. So you'll have x squared minus 3x plus 9. And now again, since we have a minus in the middle of the two terms, we don't like that. So we'll put a plus on top and a minus on top of the plus. And now we're just going to do our grouping. So in x squared, how many x's is there? There's 2. So x times x. 3x is just 3 times your x. And then again, 3x is just 3 times your x. And now 9. Can you rewrite 9 as 3 times something? Yes, 3 times 3. Now, over here, I'm going to circle what the first two have in common. So over here, the first two, what do they have in common? They have an x in common. So you circle your x's. Now, what did I not use on top? An x. What did I not use on the bottom? A 3. And then your symbol in between is a minus. Now, I'll do the same thing, but with the last one. You have a 3 in common, so put down a 3. Now, what do we not use on top? An x. What do we not use on bottom is a 3. Symbol in between, minus. And then remember, since we switch the signs, we always take the bottom one for the first one. So this one will be a minus 3. So over here, what do they both have in common? X minus 3. And then your leftovers, which is, again, x minus 3. And now for the LCD, our final step. It's just looking at what they have in common. So over here, what do both of these two have in common? They both have 1x minus 3 in common. So you go write down x minus 3. And when you write it, cancel it. Now on the left, what have I not used? An x minus 8. And on the right, what have I not used? An x minus 3. And then that's it. You're done for LCD. You're done. Nothing else to do. So for the LCD, I think it isn't that much of a difficult problem. I think the difficult part would be the factoring. I think looking at what they have in common isn't that difficult. It's just actually getting there. All right, I'm gonna move on to example number 3. So for example number 3, you're just looking at the denominators again. Over here, whenever you have x squared minus a number x, let me let it clear up first. Let's see if it's going to want to clear. Give me a second. Okay, there we go. So we have x squared minus an x, a number x. Whenever you have x squared minus x, you're always going to list it. So over here, x squared minus x. How many x's are in x squared? 2. So you'll put 1, 2. What about in 2x? How many x's? It's just 2 times x. And now you're just looking at what they have in common. So what do they both have in common? X. So you'll take out an x. What do we not use on the top? An x. What do we not use on the bottom? A 2. Symbol in between is a minus. And now we'll do the second denominator. So for that second denominator, we'll do the same thing. So 4x, that's just going to be 4 times x. And then for the 8, can you rewrite 8 as 4 times a number? You can, and that is 4 times 2. So we'll rewrite it as 4 times 2. And now we're just going to look at what they have in common. So both of these last two just have a 4 in common. So you have a 4 in common. Now, what do we not use on the top? An x. What do we not use on the bottom? A 2. And your symbol in between, a minus. Now again, for the LCD, we're just looking at what the bottom have in common. So what do these two have in common? They both have an x minus 2 in common. So I'll put that. And you'll cancel that. So or just check it off. Now, what do we not use on the left? An x. What do we not use on the right? A 4. So, and this would be your answer. But I don't like having my 4 on the before the or after the x. I'd recommend putting your 4 before the x. So I would recommend writing it like this: x minus 2, 4x. But both of these answers are correct. I'd recommend writing it your numbers first and then the x, but you could put the first one and it's still right. Because again, you're just multiplying. And then that's it for number 3. Number 3 is a lot easier, and it's probably how it's a lot nicer. It's how it is on the worksheet, I believe, for some of the questions. And then since we're done with number 3, we'll move on to number 4. So number 4, what you're gonna do is, again, since you have x plus a number, whenever you have x plus a number, you're just gonna do the same thing. You're just gonna list it. So you have 3x is just equal to 3 times x, and then 15. Can you rewrite 15 as 3 times a number? You can. 3 times 5. You just rewrite that as 3 times 5. And now, what do those two have in common? They have a 3 in common. What do we not use on the top? An x. What do we not use on the bottom? A 5. And then your symbol between, a plus. So it's 3 times x plus 5. Now, we're just going to have to do factor the right denominator. So since we have x squared plus 9x plus 20, the only way you could factor this is by doing ABC. So unfortunately, you have to do the ABC. So your A is whatever is in front of your x squared. So in front of our x squared is just 1. There's nothing in there, so it's going to be a 1. B is whatever is in front of your x. So in front of our x, we have a 9, so that's what will be our B. And C is our constant. Our constant here is a 20. So that's what we'll put. We'll put 20. Now, you'll do your diamond. So on the top, you put A times C. Our A is 1, our C is 20. So 20 times 1 is just 20. So that's what you'll put on top. On the bottom, you put your B, which is just 9. And now two numbers that multiply 20 but add to 9, just 4 and 5. And now we're just going to replace our middle term with our left and our right. So we'll have x squared plus 4x plus 5x plus 20. And now we're going to look out, we're just going to do our grouping. So over here, or just look at what the first have in common and the last have in common. So over here, x squared, you could just rewrite that as, how many x's is there in x squared? 2. So you could just rewrite this as x times x. 4x is just 4 times x. 5x is just 5 times x. And then 20. Can you rewrite 20 as 5 times a number? You can. 5 times 4. So you just rewrite as 5 times 4. Now let's look what the first two have in common. So what do the first two have in common? They both have an x. What do we not use on top? X. What do we not use on bottom? 4, symbol in between, plus. Now we're gonna look what the last two have in common. So the last two have a 5 in common. So we'll put down a 5. What do we not use on top? An X. What do we not use on bottom? 4. Symbol in between, plus. Now we'll just rewrite it. So what do both of these two have in common right here? X plus 4. And then our leftovers is just going to be X plus 5. And now that right there is your right denominator. So now we just have to do our LCD. So LCD is just looking at what they have in common. So what does this and this have in common? They both have an X plus 5 in common. So we'll write that down. Now, what did I not use on the right or on the left? I mean, a 3. So I'll put down a 3. What did I not use on the right? X plus 4. And now you are done. Since we have nothing else to write down. And that's it. So hopefully you find doing the LCD easy. And if you find it difficult, hopefully it's not looking at what they have in common, but it's just the factoring, which hopefully, again, you don't find difficult because we were doing it the whole term. Okay, now I'm gonna move on to the backside, which I would say is the more difficult part, which is solving for x. So to solve for x, there's two different ways. The first way is finding the LCD and multiplying your fractions by LCD, which I think is students in general find a little bit harder, but we'll do it right now. See how you guys think about it. So over here, you see how you have an x over here and a 12 over here? The way that I would do it is I recommend, can you rewrite 12 as 6 times the number? And if you can, rewrite it as. So 12, can you rewrite 12 as 6 times the number? You can, it's 6 times 2. So I would recommend doing that tree of 6 times 2. And now I would recommend just straight up, just jump to your LCD. So over here, LCD, what do both of these two denominators have in common? They have an x in common, so you'll put an x. Now, what did we not have not used? The 2. So we'll write down the 2. But remember, LCD, you're always multiplying the things inside of it. So what's 6 times 2? 12. So your LCD is going to be 12. And with this 12, we're going to multiply both of our fractions. So you have x plus 3 over 12 and 5 over 6. So what we're going to do is multiply it both sides, put a times 12. Because we're just multiplying by our LCD. So when you multiply your LCD, you're just putting that times 12. Okay, now over here, you're just gonna start dividing. So over here, you see how you have a 12 on top and on the bottom? So these are just gonna cancel out. Over here, see how you have a 12 on the top and a 6 on the bottom? Just divide those. So what's 12 divided by 6? That's just a 2. So this is gonna cancel and leave a 2 on top. And now just rewrite how it is. So over here, you just have an x plus 3. Over here, you have a 5 times 2. But what's 5 times 2? 10. And now just solve for x. So how do you get rid of this plus 3? You minus 3. So what's 10 minus 3? Negative 7 or positive 7. And that right there is going to be your answer. And you're done. So this is the LCD way. The second way is the way that most students prefer. It's the cross multiplying. It's the butterfly method. You've done this in middle school when you're a freshman. You just did it your whole life. Students magically or say that they didn't learn it. They just magically forget it, but you learned it your whole life. So over here, all you're going to do is just circle the diagonals. Start by circling diagonals. So over here, what do I have in my first circle? I have a x plus 3 and a 6. So write this number first and then your x plus 3. What about my second circle? What do I have? 12 and 5. So you'll put 12 times 5. Now over here on the left, you're just going to distribute. So what's 6 times x? 6x. What's 6 times 3? 18. And what's on the right, you'll do your numbers. So what's 12 times 5? It's just going to be 60. Now, over here, how do I get rid of this 18? You subtract it. So you put minus 18. So these 18s are going to cancel and the 6x will drop down. Now what's 60 minus 18? It is 42. So you write that down. Now, how do I get rid of the 6? You divide it on both sides. So you have x is equal to, and then what's 42 divided by 6? Just going to be 7. And that right there is your answer. And you're done. So this way is a little bit easier for students because it's more nicer to see. But whichever to your own, whichever one you recommend. So I'm going to do this next one because it's a simple one, doing both methods, but I'm going to be quick with it. So over here, LCD is just looking at what the denominators have in common. So LCD is going to be, what do you have on the denominator of the left and the denominator of the right? Does these two have anything in common? They don't. And if you said X, that's wrong because it's X minus 2, not X times 2. If it was X times 2, it would have an X in common. But this is X minus 2. So you see it as a whole, one big thing by itself. So the left, we have an X. The right, we have an X minus 2. And that's going to be our LCD. So that's what we're going to multiply our fractions by. So we have 3 times your LCD of X minus 2 all over X. It's going to be equal to 8 of X minus 2 all over X minus 2. And we start by canceling. So over here, they both have an X on top. We'll just cancel. So that'll leave us with 3x minus 2. Over here, they both have an X minus 2. So they'll just leave an 8x. Now, this distribute. So what's 3 times X? 3x. What's 3 times negative 2? Negative 6. And then you have that equal to 8x. How do I get rid of this 3x? Subtract it. So you have negative 6 is equal to 5x. And then you divide by 5 on both sides. And that gives you that x is equal to negative 6 over 5. And leave it as a fraction. Because we want those nice numbers. And by nice numbers, I mean we want the fractions. We don't want decimals. And that's how we would do it if you had LCD. The easier way, I think, is just cross multiplying. So over here, just cross multiply. So what did I circle in the first one? 3x minus 2. What did I circle in the second one? 8 and x. So over here, just distribute on the left. So what's 3 times x? That's 3x. What's 3 times negative 2? Negative 6. And you have that 8x. How do I get rid of that 3x? You subtract it. What's 8x minus 3x? 5x. How do I get rid of the 5? You divide it on both sides. So you have x is equal to negative 6 over 5, and you're done. That's all you gotta do. So I think cross multiplying is a lot easier. Okay, over here, you're gonna, for the LCD, you'll do the same thing. A little tip, at least in this class, your LCD, you could factor this out, but here, I'm gonna rewrite this factored already. So this problem is just 1 over x plus 2 plus 1 over x minus 2, and that is equal to 4 times x plus 2, x minus 2. So if you don't know how I got this, bottom part right here, you're just gonna ace, and let me see, let it focus. You're just gonna ABC this, and you'll get this, okay? So now, over here, your LCD is what they have in common. So what do these two have in common right here? They both have an x plus 2 in common, so you write that. What about these two? They both have x minus 2, so that's going to be your LCD. And now, what you're going to do is multiply everything by your LCD. So you'll have x plus 2, x minus 2, all over x plus 2, plus x plus 2, x minus 2, all over x plus minus 2, is equal to 4 over x plus 2, x minus 2, all over x plus 2, x minus 2. And now you're just going to cancel stuff. So over here, x plus 2 is x minus 2 is cancel. Over here, the x minus 2 is cancel. And over here, the x plus 2 is cancel. So over here on the left, you'll be left with x minus 2. Over here, you're left with x plus 2. And over here, you're just left with 4. And now over here, with x plus x, it's going to be 2x. With negative 2 plus 2, 0, so you don't have to write anything down, and you have 4. Now, how do you get rid of the 2? You divide by 2 on both sides, and then these are going to cancel, and you'll be left with x is equal to 2. And then that would be your answer. But first, remember, we were talking about excluded solutions. So over here, you just have to make sure that your answer doesn't make the bottom of a fraction equal to 0. So over here, your answer is 2. Is 2 plus 2 equal to 0? No, because 2 plus 2 is equal to 4. Over here, 2 minus 2, is that equal to 0? It is. So since 2 minus 2 is equal to 0, this is not possible, and our answer would be no solution. And you're done. So you do all that work just for no solution. So this is why I don't really like the LCD method as much. The way that I would prefer is the butterfly method. And you'll see right now how much easier it is. The butterfly method with 3 things like this is a little bit trickier. So the way you would do it is like this. You would circle your diagonals on the left. So over here, on the first circle, what do I have circled? 1 and an x minus 2. So right, 1, x minus 2. What about on the second circle? I have 1 and x plus 2. Now, what's my symbol in the middle of those circles? The plus. So put a plus right here. And now, over here, you're going to put a, this is a little bit complicated in class. I just skipped a step, but you could just put your division and then put the bottom 2. So over here you have x plus 2, so put that down. And then the other one, x minus 2. That's going to equal to this, which is 4. And then you should factor this, but again, we already did it over here, and it's going to be x plus 2 and x minus 2. And now you see how they both have x plus 2 and x minus 2 on the bottom of the fractions? So since they have the same thing on the bottom, you can just ignore the bottom and just make the top equal to each other. So just rewrite the top. So you'll have 1 of x plus 2 plus 1 x, or this should be a minus 2, and this is x plus 2, and that's just going to equal to 4. And now I just distribute. So what's 1 times x? That's just x. That's 1 times negative 2. That's negative 2. And then let me change pens because it's changing. What's 1 times x? That's plus x. And then what's 1 times positive 2? That's 2. And that's equal to 4. And I'll just combine like terms. So what's x plus x? That's 2x. What's negative 2 plus 2? That's 0. So you don't have to write it down. And then you have that 4. And now you just got to divide. So divide 2 on both sides. And that gives you x is equal to 2. And now, again, just make sure it doesn't make the bottom of the denominator equal to 0. So does 2 plus 2 equal 0? No, 2 plus 2 is 4. So that's on 0. So we're good on this one. Is 2 minus 2 equal to 0? Yes. Since it is, this is not possible. This, you can't be your solution. So your answer is going to be no solution. And you're done. And that's it for today's video. So I'll be uploading other videos because you guys or because of popular demand. And then remember, if you guys ever get a 4, I'm gonna give you guys a shout out on the next video. But so far, nobody has gotten a 4, so no short shout out so far. So let me just stop sharing and then stop recording. Okay, that is all. So I'll upload on the YouTube again, and hopefully you guys like and subscribe. I get those comments, and I need to get I gotta get my fame up on YouTube. So make sure to like, subscribe, and share. All right, then. Hopefully you guys had a good day, and hopefully you guys are not confused.